Want more of me?
Me?
Go to MeTVFresno.com for schedules, information on your favorite shows, videos, pictures, and more. Go to MeTVFresno.com today. Exclusively brought to you by Ventura TV.
Hi, I'm John Malos, and welcome to this edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. On this Tuesday morning, we pay tribute to the late, great Dr. Peter G. Mehas. His passing, of course, over the weekend. He was only 73 years old. We will take your phone calls at 436-MeTV, option 11. And also, we have a very special guest in the studio today to remember Dr. Mehas. There's no doubt about it. This has been a very tough weekend. Of course, this past weekend I've had three friends of mine who have passed away. One of them, Dr. Peter G. Mehas, and we do this show today with very heavy hearts. He was a good friend, a longtime friend. I've known him ever since I arrived in Fresno back in 1996. He welcomed me with open arms when I worked at KMPH. He was only 73 years old, and he was feeling some chest pains over the weekend. So he checked himself into St. Agnes Medical Center, as we all know by now, what we read in the Fresno Bee and saw on television. And he was there with his wife. He asked for a deck of cards, and suddenly he passed away from an aneurysm. He was only 73, as I said. But let's go to the video, and I'll show you Dr. Peter G. Mehas. He was a giant in the world of education, not only here in the Central Valley, but the entire state of California. The images that you see here are of a man who dedicated most of his life to helping children. Yes, there's no doubt that Dr. Mehas rubbed elbows with the rich and famous. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Governor Pete Wilson, Governor Duke Majan, and both presidents in the White House named Bush. But he most cared about the less fortunate in our educational system, and he never lost sight of that. He was a guest on this program twice and spoke very strongly in favor of parental involvement in schools at all levels. And he himself, Dr. Mehas, while serving as Fresno County Superintendent of Schools for the better part of 16 years, would actually go into the classroom every few months or so and teach. He cared about those struggling students who didn't have the support system at home and who spoke very little English, and he gave a helping hand wherever he could. There he is hugging Arnold Schwarzenegger. There he is with Alan Autry. And live in our studio right now is Larry Powell, a longtime friend of Dr. Mehas's. In fact, Larry had known him since the age of 15. And so that's a long-time friendship between Larry Powell and Dr. Mehas. Your phone calls are also important. 436-MeTV, option 11 on this day. Call in, weigh in with your thoughts about Dr. Peter G. Mehas, the passing at 73 years old. Don't forget, the services will be held this coming Friday at St. George's Greek Orthodox Church at 10 a.m. Get there early. It will be jam-packed. We're back with our tribute to the one and only Peter G. Mehas.
This black and white patrol car has an overhead valve V8 engine. It develops 325 horsepower at 4,800 RPMs. It accelerates from 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. It has a top speed of 120 miles an hour. The automobile has 2 shotgun racks, one attached to the bottom portion of the front seat, one in the vehicle trunk.
You want me to drive?
Now on MeTV Fresno, Xfinity 187.
Once again, as a reminder, those church services will take place on Friday, this coming Friday at 10 a.m. at St. George's Greek Orthodox Church. The funeral service for Dr. Peter G. Mehas. Get there early. Larry Powell, good to see you.
Yeah, pleasure,
it's going to
John.
be packed Friday.
It will be packed. You know, the reason I think they're having it there is Pete actually wanted it in a little smaller setting and for the family. And you do funerals for families, not for the rest of us.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
want to pay tribute, but it's for Demi and the girls and the grandkids and those kind of things. So we want to encourage folks to understand that.
Got a quick call. Good morning. You're on with Larry Powell. How are you?
Good morning, and I'd like to extend my condolences to the mehas family. What they didn't mention when I heard the news about it, what they didn't mention that he was a teacher at the old Clovis High School.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him from then, and he was a great educator. And if I can remember correctly, I think I even had him for a teacher. But like I said,
in fact, he was also principal at Clovis High School. Yeah. And so a lot of students from the Clovis community remember him. And during that time, he ended up going to Sacramento and actually being the education representative for Governor Deukmejian. So remarkable guy.
Well, thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
He was a very young man.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
What does this loss mean?
Well, we've lost an advocate. First of all, we've lost a friend, and families lost someone very close to them. But we've lost an advocate not only for Fresno or Fresno County, but the Valley and the entire state of California. Pete was not shy. Pete would speak up when there was something he saw that was wrong or we were getting the short end of the stick in the Valley. He would speak up for our kids here. Yeah. Tremendous advocate. So that's what we're losing is advocacy.
Can the shoes be filled?
They always can be. That's the unique thing about life, and Pete would be the first one to tell you this. I've got to tell you one of the unique stories behind my becoming superintendent. He invited me from Central Unified to come over and be his deputy, and I said, Pete, I don't want to be a deputy. I'm superintendent. And he said, let me tell you, you're going to enjoy doing this, and you're going to learn something, and I think you'll be the next superintendent as a result for the county. So he was right on with that. He said to me, Larry, you won't hear from me when you are superintendent unless you call me. He said, I'm no longer the superintendent, you will be. And so he had a unique perspective that the next person in, it's their job now. Now, I don't know if we'll have the bigger-than-life personality that Pete had, but we certainly will have people who will stand up for the Valley. I don't know if we'll have Mr. Bulldog, who is also a Dodger fan, but we'll have people that step up and do the right thing. But Pete had this ability with both parties to go across party links there. And he didn't care if you were a Democrat or a Republican, even though he was a strong Republican. He was going to do the right thing for the kids of the Valley. That was the unique thing about Pete.
He was larger than life, wasn't he?
He was larger than life, absolutely.
Yeah. He was on this program twice. He talked to me extensively about going to Bible study once a week.
Yes.
Jerry Dyer and I forget a few other friends of his.
H. Spies.
Right, H. Spies.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that Bible study.
I've always, from the time I was a Greek Orthodox altar boy and my time with Young Life, got into the Scripture, but it was always difficult for me to go back and apply the Scripture to everyday living. I mean, there was a separation. But one of the things with this group that we got together, I would look at problems I was confronted with in a leadership role. But oftentimes leaders are reluctant because once you get, the worst thing that can happen to a person sometimes when you get degrees and you get titles. Because people think and you think you're supposed to know it all. And that's when you don't know anything. And so you're afraid to ask questions. So that's why I was reluctant oftentimes to ask questions because, hey, you know, you're the superintendent, you're this, you're that.
Your response?
Sure. You know, Pete really connected with folks in that little segment right there. Think about this. I don't know everything even though I'm superintendent. Right. Is part of what he said, and how true it is. I've been a Christian all of my life. I'm also a Baptist minister. I got to spend a year with Pete in conversations, private conversations that some other folks may not have had the opportunity to have. And he began a very deep relationship with the Lord over those period of months that we spent together when he left the office and I became superintendent.
Well, there's no question about it. Dr. Mehas spent the better part of 50 years, that is most of his life, devoted to education and helping young people. And I talked to him about his calling and also the fact that he attends now a Bible study class, or he did, once a week with the likes of Jerry Dyer and H. Spies and all the rest. And he talked about the Bible class and what it did for him. Your life calling has been education. There's no doubt about it. Who knows more about it than you do?
Well,
right?
I'm sure there are a lot of folks, but I've been blessed to be surrounded by great teachers,
great parents, and a great community. So I've learned a great deal, and I'm still trying to learn to get those answers.
How about the Bible study group now? How often do you go? Is it once a month, once a week?
It's once a week. And,
okay, I was wrong about that. Sorry.
No, it's once a week, and sometimes we missed. Like yesterday, I had a trustee meeting the last couple of days in Long Beach, so I couldn't make it. But it's a very, very informal group. And the people come, and we talk about men problems. We talk about things that we're confronted with. And the thing I enjoy about this group is that the difficult questions in life, whether it's jealousy or temptations, we go back and we're very open with each other and saying, how do we go about solving this from a biblical point of view? And
does it work?
Well, I think it gives us cause to think and to understand. And yes, it gives us a roadmap that we're not the only one that had that problem. And if David had a difficult time solving that problem, what do we expect from ourselves? But yes, it does. It gives us pause for reflection, and also with fellow men to look at real life experiences and say there's some hope and there's some solutions to our problems.
And one of the things that he was concerned about was, how do you take the Scripture and apply it to every life?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it really is applicable. I think people think of it as a unique book that you go to only when you're in trouble, but if you understand what's behind it, it actually is a daily guide. And think about this, it calls on us to treat everybody with dignity. The kind answer turns away wrath. You don't go at people, but you work with people. And I have a little saying that more people are led to the cross than driven. Some people have to be driven because they just have a hard head, but you know.
And here's the thing, we mentioned it before, and you talked about it just for a couple of minutes, and that is that Dr. Mehas didn't profess to know everything.
Right.
And I talked to him about that. He didn't have all the answers. Here's what he said on my program about that.
Absolutely. There are times when you get degrees, there's an image that you're supposed to know those things. And I think that's when you quit learning. You quit learning when you don't ask questions. You quit learning when you're not afraid to admit, I don't know that. Yeah. And I think that's what was helpful to me, to finally say, be comfortable with yourself and to ask questions and to show that you don't know as much as that degree says you know.
Isn't that true?
The degree does not guarantee anything, let me tell you. And Lincoln once said that the trouble with common sense is it's not very common, you know. So Pete had common sense in addition to book learning. Obviously a very bright guy.
He had both.
He did. And you know what? He did surround himself with good people. He went out and found the best people. And the whole goal of leadership is this: provide a vision, get resources, and get out of the way and let them do their jobs.
But he had a very gregarious personality, and that helped him.
He connected with everybody, and it didn't matter if you were the bum on the street or the president of the United States or the governor.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Right. All right. Larry Powell is our special guest here. The tribute to Dr. Peter G. Mehas continues in just a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
The funeral for Dr. Peter G. Mehas takes place this coming Friday, St. George's Greek Orthodox Church at 10 a.m. It'll be packed. Get there early. He was a Christian. Christ was in his life. Went to Bible study. And when he was on this show, he talked about his relationship and what he thought about Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, I taught a class one summer at SC in Stanford, and I took, not from a theological point of view, but I took Christ and Christ and his disciples, and I said, a lesson we can learn from that when you speak out and are committed to a cause, there's a price you're going to pay. There are consequences. And if man could take a person like Jesus Christ, which many of us to believe to be the Son of God, but he was a popular figure. If they can take him one week and give him a parade and say, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then the next week crucify him, what do you think they can do to our leaders now? So there's a lesson that we can learn.
I love that segment.
Yeah.
That's really right on.
Interesting. But you have a story about him visiting the pyramids.
Well, in his younger days, he took a world tour. And one of the stories that I just learned off of Facebook, over 800 people have responded to the Facebook pictures that I put out. He was in Egypt, and he was at the pyramids, and he learned a quick route to the top, and he would then challenge the tourists who came to beat him to the top, and he knew the best route to get there so he could make extra money. So that was Pete, very creative, ingenious. I just love that story.
Were you as shocked as I was when you heard the news?
I was, because my image of Pete is one of a swimmer, every morning, great shape, a wonderful athlete.
He worked out, did he?
He worked out every day. I mean, it was
So how did
without
this
exception.
happen? How could this happen to a guy who's in great shape?
I spoke with a surgeon the other day just to ask that very question, and they said that if you have a weakness in that vessel there, there's nothing you can do about it.
The aortic vessel, right?
If you have a bubble, which you can see on a gram of some kind, you can see
like an air bubble.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
If you get to it before it bursts, very correctable. If you don't get to it before it bursts, you can be gone in 60 seconds. It's that kind of thing. So just a weakness someplace there that has very little to do. Think about Dewey Slater, another local hero to me and a friend, swimmer. He's swimming in the Masters Swimming Championships, and he dies of a heart attack. So
this has nothing to do with being in great shape or out of shape or anything.
No.
It just happens.
A weakness, and it happens, and he's gone.
Yeah.
Tough loss.
How big a loss for you? What do you feel inside?
Well, I've known Pete since I was 15 years old. I had polio, as you know, in 1949. Pete saw me wrestle when he was coaching. He saw me wrestle at McLean High School. He was at Roosevelt. And we began a bit of a relationship early in those days. But he said, that's pretty amazing that you're able to win those matches even with polio. And so we had that kind of thing. And then it stretched from about 1964 to today. One really wonderful, remarkable relationship.
Knowing Pete, how much in your mind would he want us to cry, to be sad, and just to be in total disbelief?
Well, let me tell you
about his death.
Let me tell you what he was doing just before he died. He was giving the nurses a bad time in a good way, and he was whistling. So I think that's Pete. It sums it up, that he was interested in life. He enjoyed life. He had a joie
So he wouldn't want us to be weighed down by this.
I really don't think so. I think he would want us to celebrate. And that's
his
a unique
life,
thing.
you mean?
Absolutely. Celebrate his life and look at the good things that he did. Look at the relationships. Chuck Swindoll says, he's a pastor in Southern California, he said, you've never seen a hearse followed by a trailer. You can't take it with you, but you can send it ahead. And I think that's what Pete did, is he sent it ahead.
A quick call here. Good morning. You're on with Larry Powell. And your question, very quickly.
My question is, this guy is a common man, rubbed elbows with senators, governors, presidents, movers and shakers throughout education and politics. What does your guest, Dr. Larry Powell, see as was going to be the next chapter in Mehas's life? Thank you.
Oh, good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think you're going to see that he was a father, a grandfather, and a friend, and then he was an educator, an athlete, a Bulldog supporter, and those kinds of things. So I think folks are going to realize the loss of a friend first, and then the loss of an icon. And that will become real at his funeral, because I think you're going to hear stories of success, but you're going to hear stories that are humorous. They're going to be unique stories, and you're going to hear the impact of the man on a personal basis.
He might have rubbed elbows with the rich and famous, but he was for the underprivileged.
Absolutely.
And it didn't surprise you or me that every couple of months he'd go in the classroom and teach.
Absolutely.
While he was superintendent.
In fact, President Bush appointed him to a board to work on helping Hispanic Hispanics become more successful.
Exactly.
So Pete got that. Plus, crossing the aisle, I think, is such an important thing. He was a strong Republican, but you got to remember he endorsed one Arambula for Assembly and one as a Democrat because one was good for education.
And I just want to mention, you know, Governor Deukmejian appointed him as chief advisor. You mentioned President H. Bush, right? Not W. Bush. President H. Bush. The Advisory Commission on Education Excellence for Hispanics. Governor Wilson appointed him to the California Community College Board of Governors. Arnold Schwarzenegger appointed him as the Advisory Committee on Education and Excellence. And as we all know, he was instrumental in getting Joseph Castro appointed at Fresno State.
Wonderful pick.
Right.
Let me tell you, Joseph is going to do a fantastic job. And I think he's personally hurt by this as well.
I know.
Pete made a great connection with Joe. Wonderful, wonderful man to have as our leader.
Got to take a quick break here, Larry. Back with more of our show in just a moment.
From the pages of history and the untamed prairies of a young nation comes one of television's and America's most memorable folk heroes.
Daniel Boone was a man, yes, a big man.
Well, you're Daniel Boone.
Yep. Fess Parker stars as the legendary Daniel Boone, with Ed Ames as his trusty sidekick, Mingo.
Pleasure indeed.
A Kentuckian named Daniel Boone.
That's me.
Watch Daniel Boone weekday mornings at 9, 8 Central on MeTV.
And back with our program here, Dr. Peter G. Mehas, the funeral, 10 a.m., Friday, St. George's Greek Orthodox Church. I talked to him extensively twice here on this program. Just an amazing character. I asked him about Fresno Unified School District. I want to get your thoughts on this.
Sure.
Pete not only told me it's too big, it's grown too big, it's not manageable. Not only do I think, I'm talking for Mehas now, that it should be split into 2 different districts, Pete thought it should be split up into 4 different districts. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think Mike Hansen has done a remarkable job in a very difficult circumstance. I think big is tough because it's hard to meet all of the needs of the various folks. I think what is happening now is they've divided it into regions in order to try to do that without actually splitting it. You do have some issues that come up, and this is where Pete and I had a little bit of a disagreement about that.
Because so you don't agree with splitting it up into 4 different...
Not completely, because you've got food services that serves the whole district. You can't split food services operation into 4. You've got transportation, so you would have to be buying services, so it does create some issues, but you also have 4 superintendents then. You've got a bureaucracy now that is a little more expensive. I think what Mike is trying to do right now by going to regions may in fact be an answer for this, but I think we've got to find a way to get everybody's voice heard, and that's very difficult in a big district.
And Pete was in favor of parental involvement in schools. He says there is not enough of that.
Well, there isn't, because if a parent is involved, the child will be successful, and you don't even have to have a good school district for that to happen. It's key to a child's success.
And not enough of that is going on, right?
Not enough of that is going on. I think more and more parents, though, are stepping up. I've got to tell you a quick story. McLean High School has a parent group now that is doing some wonderful work that have just gotten in and said, we're going to help take over the school in a positive way, do the best things for our kids.
Despite what happened with Dr. Welty and many of the lawsuits over at Fresno State, Pete was a big backer of Welty because of his fundraising abilities, and he had a lot of positives.
Absolutely.
He said, his Achilles heel was the athletics department.
Sure. Athletics has created problems, but you got to remember, everybody thinks they're an expert on athletics, so the entire valley is an expert in Fresno State athletics.
Larry. I'm an expert, right? I know.
Exactly. Dr. Welty did an amazing job, and I got to tell you, he opened up the university to Hispanics in the Central Valley in a way that no other president had done. So that's very, very unique. I love what Welty did. I think we had a big disagreement about wrestling. I think wrestling should have existed at Fresno State because it is big in the area in K-12, and it's a great place for the little guy to be the big man on campus. So we need to have wrestling back.
Are you speaking at the funeral?
I don't believe I am. I think there are a lot of folks that are. That's why I have a Facebook page if people would like to go and see some comments, but they can also see a lot of pictures that are candid pictures of Dr. Mehas. By the way, the G in Mehas stands for great. I think he was Peter the Great.
Well, you're Larry the Great, and I appreciate you being here. We're going to close out our show today with a big slideshow of Dr. Peter G. Mehas, who passed away at the age of 73, sadly, over the weekend at St. Agnes Medical Center here in the city of Fresno. A shock to everybody. He was a giant in the world of education. Hard to replace a guy like that because he gave us here in the Central Valley so much exposure, not only throughout the entire state of California, but throughout the entire nation. And his shoes are going to be big ones to fill. Here's the tribute to Dr. Peter G. Mehas. No question about it, Larry. Dr. Mehas did it his way, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He was not a wallflower. He was not afraid to stand up for the Valley. He was not afraid to stand up for Fresno State. And if you were a friend of Dr. Mehas's, he was a friend for life. And it did not matter what you did, what happened to you in life, difficult circumstances that you go through, he was loyal. He was a true friend.
If you were asked to speak at his funeral, and you were to describe him in one sentence, what would it be?
A man that anybody could talk to, that anybody would feel good about, and they would feel better about themselves after their conversation with him.
Well, you know what? I feel great after your appearance here on Connect with Me, and feel good after talking with you.
Thank you. Great
and you're
to see
welcome
you.
here anytime. Come
Thank
back
you.
again.
Good to see you, John.
All right. Larry Powell, the former superintendent of Fresno County Schools himself. He followed, of course, in the footsteps of Dr. Peter G. Mehas, the funeral on Friday, 10 a.m., St. George's Greek Orthodox Church. See you back here again tomorrow for another edition of Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno.
Just about every morning, in just about every city and town across this great land, there are those who head to work early and get home late. They're the independent dealers of North America. Their priorities come from Main Street, not Wall Street. They work in showrooms and warehouses, not glass buildings or ivory towers. Their customers have names, not numbers, and their family's name might even be on the building. Their independence. They provide jobs, invest in their communities, pay taxes, and serve their neighbors. Their independence. With hard work, good judgment, and a little help from above, they're able to carve a living out of a storefront, some inventory, and their most valuable assets, their customers. Their independence. There was a time not that long ago when the MBAs, the consultants, and even a few suppliers had written them off. Surely the corporate giants with their massive resources and billions in sales would snuff out the independent flame. But those guys don't make the rules. Customers do. Now it's becoming clear. There's a change in the air. A realization that customers are demanding more. Who can deliver quality? Where did service and advice go? What happened to trust? Well, it's been right here all along. In every delivery and every handshake at each of the thousands of independent dealers of the Nationwide Marketing Group and its divisions. Working together to buy better, sell smarter, and compete tougher. So think outside the big box. Think independent and save. Since 1951, Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're working hard to be your place.
Frigidaire. It means the first electric refrigerator. The first compact electric range. Now, there's the Frigidaire Gallery Range with Symmetry double ovens. It's designed to cook multiple dishes at multiple temperatures, so you can prepare the entire meal at the same time. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.